Welcome, everybody. This is the KubeVirt community meeting, January 22nd, 2020, new year. On the agenda and note section, just a note from the CDI team, and I'll turn it over to Alex.
Yes, I'm planning on releasing version 1.12 on Friday. It has some bug fixes and some new features like support for resource quota, which was added by a community member. So that's progress there.
Awesome. So I captured those different notes, and just curious, is there anything else that we want to cover in the agenda and note section today? All right, moving on to the open floor. We have a note from Kunal. Am I saying your name correctly? My English pronunciation is probably crap.
I added them.
He's not here? All right, but no, this is a note on, go on, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I added that item from the mailing list just in case, because it's not just the request from Kunal to see if there are any participation, but also the call from Josh asking for any talk proposal that there might be in mind. So even if the official Red Hat participation, as Josh said, is going to be planned after FOSDEM, maybe if someone has some idea, it could be good to start working on that.
Awesome. Yeah, I unfortunately am late to the game with CFPs often, so it's good to have a head. So thank you for the note on that. And I think you actually added the next note as well.
Question. What was Kunal asking about?
There is an email on the mailing list, and let me quote just to make sure I'm not putting any of my words. Just wanted to check if anyone planning for KubeCon Shanghai. Call for paper is open. I would like to know if someone has attended it previously and how useful would be to have session like BOF in English. If there is any language, and there is a lot of interest in mentions OpenStack, and probably KubeVirt will be one of a nice topic for the developer community in China.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Cheers.
All right, and the next note is, of course, the Creative Commons by attribution license, and I'll let you mention that as well.
Yeah, sure. Just doing a ping on the thread I started last week after the meeting. I got an update on the GitHub issue by Roman. The thing is, I'm not sure if we will need some kind of agreement between all the contributors so far in order to change the license. And probably that's something for the guys familiar with that here to discuss about it. Just to put the background, the previous license we had was the verbatim one for Jekyll, which is not like the best one for our website.
I don't know how that works, honestly. I've not dealt with that before. So the context for those not familiar with the conversation is that the website is currently licensed as MIT. And I think Creative Commons by attribution would be a better fit. And so the proposal has been that we should change to match. But that's a very good question. I don't know if we need buy-in from existing contributors to change it. We might.
Yeah, license changes need the, I mean, it's a little bit of a gray area, right? But usually if you have a large amount of contributors, you need the buy-in from them or from the majority of them to do the license change. So I would take it to the mailing list, but to be honest, I don't think it is not something we can easily do.
Yeah, or maybe at least something we could and probably should do is change the copyright in the license file that we have. It's as Pablo mentioned, it's a copy and paste from Jekyll, the engine that we use for the website, and it says copyright Jekyll. I guess it should be, copyright us.
KubeVirt authors, yes. I guess we go back to the mailing list, but thank you so much for raising that. I hadn't thought about the existing user issue. All right, and if there's nothing else on that topic, next one is from Daniel Belenki to talk about AppArmor or support for it. Nope, still can't hear you. Nope, still can't hear you. All right, so the topic was to discuss the security implementation or implications of the pull request 3013 on GitHub. And I'm going to pull that up real quick just to see if it's wrong button. See if I can, at a glance, add support for security for AppArmor profile to Virt Launcher Pod. This was created by Vishesh. And
Can you hear me now?
yes, now we can hear you.
Yes, thank you. Sorry for that. So if someone here is unfamiliar with AppArmor is basically Ubuntu's version of SE Linux. So it allows a user to set different rules, and then Kubernetes allows the user to bind these rules to pods, and then it affects applications within the pods. So this feature, what the user added, actually allows a user who can specify, who can deploy VMI objects to the API server to add AppArmor rules, and then our controller will render those rules into the launcher pod. So they will propagate eventually. So at first glance, it looked to me like, okay, just another security limitations, but I'm not sure if it can maybe allow users implicitly to extend the rules, like give Virt Launcher more permissions than what it needs to have. And maybe, the problem that it can be like, you're a cluster admin, you have CNV, you give someone permission to create VMIs, and implicitly you actually allow them to run applications with greater permissions than you expected it to run. But I'm raising it here because I'm not sure if it's an issue.
Yeah, to be fair, great for raising it. So to be honest, due to my day job, I'm not so familiar with AppArmor, and I'm rather working with SE Linux. So one thing that would be really helpful, and I just asked Vishesh for that, is if we have a peer who can actually review it from their side, and to really get some opinions from people really doing it in their day-to-day job. Yeah. So I hope that we get that at some point. Just
disclaimer, I'm not familiar with AppArmor so much myself. This is why I wanted to raise it here.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. Actually, that is, I think, a question for many things. Like this other PR, that Q80 thing from Intel, which is also very hard to review, in my opinion, because we are really not, I don't have the expertise, and from the people I know, we also don't have the expertise. That's making stuff difficult. In these cases, yeah, maybe that's a good thing. I think one takeaway is we should encourage these kind of contributors first to appreciate that they contributed it, but maybe ask if they can pull in peers to do reviews, right? If we don't have the experience or we don't know anybody. They will also, get more people involved.
Well, thank you, Daniel. Unfortunately, I don't have the expertise to answer offhand either. So next topic is none. Are there any more topics that we need to raise for the open floor? Or questions that we need answered today?
I have a question for the KubeVirt CI for Kubernetes 117. We tried running that with CDI, and as soon as we put 2 nodes in our cluster, one of the nodes cannot communicate with the other node's API server. We have a bug on KubeVirt CI. Is anybody else running into this, or is it just us?
I know that, oh, please go ahead. Somebody else was speaking up.
As far as I can tell, if I can chime in, I'm currently experiencing issues in running the KubeVirt test suite on Kubernetes 1.17 KubeVirt CI provided. What I'm experiencing is that the cleanup after the test doesn't run exactly like it does on the other providers. So it's like
one of the things that we saw was that the namespace cleanup would basically not happen. The namespace would stay there forever because the removal of the namespace tries to connect to the API server, and it can. So that's how we found it, basically.
Yeah.
So
Actually,
the issue, as far as as I saw it, was it was the API server could not connect to, like, at least in CDI, the CDI API server, which was running on a different node. So the Kube API server is using the cluster IP, which Kube API server is running on node 1 using a cluster IP to talk to CDI API server on node 2, and it is just timing out. But you know, any node on node 2, any process on node 2 can talk to the CDI API server. So it seems to be some sort of IP tables issue or something.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
And so what happens when you delete a namespace, I think, at least in 117, I think a new thing is the API, the Kube API server does the discovery to get all the resources that are out there, and then it can't talk to our API server, so it just hangs.
Yeah, that's actually a bug that Roman is working on. So he's actually working on that problem that the API server registration is still present when you, for example, delete a namespace, because we also have that in the operator delete flow. So at least for the operator delete flow, we can fix it, but for the namespace deletion, we cannot. But what I'm not sure about is, are you specifically speaking about the namespace deletion or the general communication with your API server?
Well, it's the general, and it's, you know, one way it's manifesting is in deleting a namespace.
Yeah, okay. No, that's odd. Sounds like the network plugin has issues. Could that be?
Yeah, I think I'm not exactly sure. It definitely sounds like a networking thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Daniel,
it's out of our wheelhouse, so we were hoping one of you would know more. So.
yeah, I actually pinged somebody I know who happens to be called Petter.
Sorry, I spaced out and I started listening only once I heard the keyword of network. Could you repeat the question or describe the issue?
Sure. Yeah, so the issue is the Kube, so in a multi-node 117 cluster, the Kube API server is running on node 1. The CDI API server is running on node 2. The Kube API server on node 1 cannot communicate to the server on node 2, basically requests timeout. It's trying to connect to the cluster IP. It can connect to the pod, like if I SSH into node 1, it can go to the pod IP, but not the cluster IP. So what I seem to be seeing is that if you're accessing a service, a cluster IP service, it is only accessible from the node that has the container or an endpoint running that service. So the Kube API server cannot communicate to the CDI API server because they're on different nodes.
I don't know. We started trying Kubernetes 1.17 provider. We had different issues, but not this one. We faced something with IPv6 and maybe some DNS issues. Maybe it's related, but I'm not sure. Not sure.
Or to answer your question differently, Alex, we were aware that there were issues with 117 provider. Our CI is, the failures are showing up quite a bit. So we have not gotten to the bottom of that yet. So we were aware there were issues in general, but in terms of diagnosing specific ones, we're going to have to reach back to you guys and work together on that.
Sure. You know, we have the lane set up, and you know our lane is failing as well. And I haven't seen a new version of the KubeVirt CI 117 yet, so I'll just wait until the new one shows up and see if that fixes the problem.
Well, we'll see. I think that there were some API changes on the Kubernetes level, so you know, it may not just fix itself, but we will explore it once we get more details.
But I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't just us, and you know, since it's not just us, I'm happy that people are looking at it. That's basically my main concern.
Absolutely. And so one more note, somebody is writing about the OKD 4.4 provider.
Yes, so
that phrases a question.
that was me. So we started looking into like how do we create a OKD 4.4 provider with which runs on FedRAMP OS instead of Arcos. And I just wanted to ask if anyone else is looking into it, because like, we first want to try it out, install it manually via OpenShift installer and see if it all works, and then maybe start creating the provider image. But I don't want to duplicate anyone's work. Just raising it.
I don't think anybody's exploring that on our side yet. So,
all right, that's good answer. Thanks.
Hey, this is Fabian. So not directly. So I know that Daniel is working on a provider which is actually leveraging CI provided by the OpenShift Origin team to do the OpenShift integration tests, because for us it was pretty cumbersome to provide the KubeVirt CI provider for OKD. So yes, we're working for OpenShift provider for integration testing, but not on KubeVirt CI side.
Gotcha. Well, as much as I like OpenShift CI and others doing our work, it makes it really hard to like do the development, which is already hard because you need 60 gigs machine, but like it's still better for us to have access to the like KubeVirt machines and all of this. And especially for network, we are way more flexible with that. So yeah, we still want to tackle the provider's CI.
I think any PRs in that direction are welcome.
Daniel?
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe we can consider using CRC as the backend for KubeVirt CI because they already can provide us the installation. I don't know if it's a viable solution, but...
Don't we already?
No.
Ah, okay.
And so maybe we can use it, you know, if you can just use CRC. I think that they already have something for 4.4, but I'm not sure. But if they already have it, you can at least right now use the Go CLI to just, you know, deploy KubeVirt on the cluster that is being created by CRC. So it will reduce most of the work for you.
Well, then I wonder why didn't we use CRCs in the beginning in the first place?
I can tell you because it wasn't there at the beginning.
All right, I see. Okay, then let's look into it first. If it makes things for us any easier.
All right, and I'm guessing we're drawing to a close. No further issues to raise. Thanks, everybody, and see you next week.
Bye.
See you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.